Orlando.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone. Welcome to the OZone.
The voice of Magic fans.
Welcome back to another episode of the OZone podcast, the voice of Magic fans. In the virtual studio today, we have Justin.
Yo.
Al.
What's going on?
Myself, Anthony, and a very special guest joining us, Magic forward Vic Law.
What's up? What's
going on, Vic? Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so obviously everyone's been going through this downtime. Vic, what are some of the things that you've been doing to keep yourself busy?
Man, so at the beginning of, I guess, the lockdown, I had went back to Chicago to be with my family. Just in these times, I guess it's better to be with loved ones while you're locked in. So I was at home and I, just tried to do things to stay in shape. Like I ran around the neighborhood, lifted in my house. But I'm sure, as you all know or may not know, in Chicago, it's cold all year round until you get really into the 4 good months. So when I was there, it was around 30 degrees every day. So trying to run back and forth and see, the people that were in my pod or, that was okay to kind of be around. But for the most part, just chilling, trying to make the most of it like everyone else.
Kind of feels like during this time, everyone's forced to be creative with how, we're either staying in shape or just trying to maintain the same mind frame, right? Especially for a professional athlete. What are some of the things that have you gotten a chance to watch the Last Dance? Has there been any downtime where you were so what are some of the things that you while watching that you really didn't know from before, especially you being from Chicago?
I mean, come on, especially being from Chicago, like those Sundays, we always block off the hours to watch it. And it's so funny, my dad watches all of them over. And they always play the previous 2 episodes before, and he always gets just as excited to watch the previous 2. But, I mean, I don't know. I had seen, like, a lot of Michael Jordan stuff before The Last Dance and, all of that. And I always had a great respect and appreciation for, like, Mike and the things he did. And it just it's interesting to, like, see it. And it brings so many, like, good conversation arguments. Like, if you were to play with Mike, like, how would that have, how would that have looked? Would you have been able to take it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I personally think, Mike is the best just because of, like, his mindset and ability to adapt to whatever. And I don't know, man, like, just seeing, like, how he kind of brought up Scott Burrell and Kerr and Pippen is just on a totally different level than I feel like the things you see today. Like, maybe Kobe was kind of like that, very demanding and harped on his teammates to be that certain level. And I think LeBron, to an extent, has it. And probably every superstar has that quality to an extent. But I think just like when you see the raw, uncut version of Jordan doing it, it sets it as such a unprecedented level to everyone else that is now trying to, assimilate that.
Now, growing up in Chicago for you, Vic, were you a Jordan fan as you were growing up?
Yeah, I was. I always loved watching the old classic, Bulls, and even when I was, coming up, I was a Bulls fan. But it's funny, like I was always a huge Celtics fan. Like I loved Rondo, Pierce, and Garnett. But when the Bulls, like when Derrick Rose was a rookie and they played the Celtics in that, round 1, and it was like such a tight series. Obviously the Chicago in me came out like I wanted the Bulls and Derrick Rose and Gordon to win it. But I wasn't mad like when the Celtics won, and I think that was the year they won the championship. So, growing up, I have always been a Bulls fan, but secretly, like, I've always loved the Celtics.
What was that like to have Derrick Rose, for example, playing for Chicago? Like, what was that what did that feel like for the city?
It was interesting. I'll say, like, as like a true like basketball fan. Like I had always liked the Bulls. Like I liked the Bulls when they had Jamal Crawford, Eddie Curry, Tyson Chandler, Marcus Fizer. When they drafted Kirk Heinrich, I loved the Bulls. Like even when they were bad, whatever. I had always been a Bulls fan. And then growing up watching Derrick Rose play in high school, like I loved Derrick Rose and the type of things he did at Simeon. And so seeing him get drafted over Beasley, Bulls lucky enough to get him, whatever. It was cool to like see that transgression. But then it was kind of like I feel like the Golden State effect, like when the Bulls then became good, like you got all the bandwagoners who don't know anything about like Bulls, you know what I'm saying? Like they're just like when we signed Carlos Boozer, like they were like, oh, we got Carlos Boozer, but it was like, oh, because you got LeBron or Melo or anybody, you know, and like you just had those like nonchalant Bulls fans that just took over Chicago. So like it was kind of like a hard time, like really being like, now like I'm a true Bulls fan, you know what I'm saying? Like I really do like Rose and Noah. Like I followed Noah in college, like you know what I'm saying? Like all those players, Brewer, everybody, you know, I'm like a Bulls fan to the T. Like I'm not just some casual, oh man, you know, D Rose is good, like, you know, whatever. But it was cool, man. I thought the transgression was cool.
I mean, Derrick Rose was the youngest MVP in the history of the NBA. So for him,
come on, you know you got to tell me that.
Yeah, for him to represent Chicago, and it's funny that you say that because even here in Orlando, where you have so many people from so many different places in the United States, that bandwagon is just one of those things that happens in the city. And there was a lot. I remember there was a lot of that. Even some of my friends, they're all big Magic fans, and then all of a sudden they're buying Derrick Rose shoes, or rocking Derrick Rose jerseys.
Yeah.
Just kind of,
let's say they would like the Warriors. Like Curry had been good on the Warriors for a while. Like he drew 50 in Madison Square Garden, and no one was like talking about it then. But then when he gets Clay and Draymond, now he's the next biggest wave. Where were all the Curry fans when he was in Davidson beating Gonzaga? Right, then coming out, like, you know what I'm saying, like coming out of college, like, and carrying the Warriors and the We Believe teams, like, right, he was right after that. You know what I'm saying? Like, where were you at then? Like, I'm not a big fan of like people who just jump on late and then trying to like, you know, accumulate themselves. Then like then they become the biggest fans within a span of 2 months. Or you're only a fan when they're in the finals. You know, like I'm not like we'll see like how many Warriors fans there really are after this season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying, because before the Steph Curry, like in between the We Believe, like where were those fans then? You know what I mean? They were all quiet and hiding.
No, even though Golden State has a good fan base, like,
yeah,
you know,
for
it's
sure.
like the national Warrior fan that just comes on every now and then.
That's what I'm saying. We go to a Magic game now, and God forbid we're playing against the Golden State Warriors, and there's so much yellow in the arena.
Yeah,
But I gotta tell you guys,
you can't stop
that's
it.
facts.
that happens in general, because I used to live up north before, and I used to go to New York and games at Madison Square Garden and in New Jersey. And when Dwight was at its peak with the Magic, you wouldn't believe it, but a lot of the arena was wearing Magic jerseys back in those days. So you see that kind of, you know, happen as superstars develop throughout, you know, NBA history. But I mean, we can't wait for Orlando to be back at that level again for sure.
Absolutely. I know I always heard stories, but you know, everyone said that, you know, Wall Street and Orange Ave were, you know, places to be when the Magic were rolling. So it'll be interesting, like, and exciting to see that happen again.
Yeah, hopefully the playoffs this season right now coming up. Once it resumes, we hope we can see that again.
Sure.
So Vic, I wanted to ask you about your college days again. Obviously, you grew up in Chicago. We kind of touched on that already.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your decision to go and play at Northwestern University. You know, what kind of led to that? So kind of run us through that decision process and what that experience was like.
Well, I'm actually originally from Mississippi, and I moved to Chicago, like, you know, permanently when I was around 9. And my mom went to Mississippi State, and, you know, where I'm from, Mississippi is near Starkville. So for a long time, my dream school was Mississippi State, to go there. And as I was getting better in high school and garnering a lot more scholarships, I think Rick Stansberry was the coach. When they were good, they had like Jarvis Bernardo, Rodney Hood, was it Renardo Sidney? Or somebody like that, you know, and I think the team had gotten like a series of consecutive fights in practice and players getting suspended, and Stansberry eventually got fired. And so I think when he got fired, like it kind of like moved my shift from Mississippi State and just opened me up. Like I was being recruited by a whole plethora of people. But what it really boiled down to was, I think my parents, specifically my mom, wanted me to be somewhere where both academics and basketball were, you know, of the importance. Mm-hmm. And with Northwestern being in the Big Ten, so I would see top tier talent, and then getting a good education was very important for her and myself. And I think, like the day I committed, I think more than ever, like both of my parents just got really anxious about being able to like watch me and see me grow and develop. And with Evanston only being an hour away, like it seemed like the perfect choice.
So before that, I mean, what did you really know about Northwestern? What were some of the exposures that you had?
Well, so when I was around sophomore in Northwestern, sophomore or junior in Northwestern, had a coach by the name of Bill Carmody, and Northwestern had always been bad. Like I think we know the story of Northwestern. They're building now, and Northwestern was a great school, but athletically then, especially talking about basketball, they weren't good. And a lot of kids in Chicago, for whatever reason, just don't stay in Chicago. Like they just don't like Illinois schools. They go somewhere else. You see now more so today, like players are going to U of I, but then like people weren't saying it in Chicago. And so when I was being recruited as a sophomore was when kind of like I first kind of blew up and started getting so much national attention and scholarships or whatever. And Northwestern came into the picture. And my mom had always had a sweet spot for Northwestern. So she says, let's hear them out, take an unofficial, just kind of see the campus and everything, whatever, to get you acclimated to Northwestern, So we take the unofficial. And I think like the whole time I'm there, like I'd never talked to Carmody once. Like there are like 7 other kids there. Like we all just kind of like funneled through the campus. It just seems very impersonal.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I'm like, well, there are schools much bigger than Northwestern, and I'm like, and one-on-one car rides with the head coach, and like, I'm seeing the football field and everything. So I'm not going to go here. Like I'm going to go somewhere where I'm wanted. So my first impression of Northwestern wasn't good by any means. It was definitely off my list, like going into later years of college. But then when Coach Collins came in, he presented a very much like new enthusiasm about basketball, his like rich basketball experience and history, kind of like, I know I like that. I like how genuine he was. He wasn't really pitching just we want you, like you can just become another number in our grand scheme system. It was like you can be the first one to do something that no one's ever done. We need you here, et cetera, et cetera.
On YouTube, I actually saw the video that you were a part of, the homage. That by far, what an amazing video. Whoever like put that together with the editing, it was such an amazing video. And what resonated with me the most is something that you said, where Duke wasn't always Duke, Kentucky wasn't always Kentucky, and you wanted to create something with Northwestern. Now, Chris Collins, he played for the University of Duke, and even coached there a little bit. So, did you feel as if his experience in some of that maybe Duke atmosphere was kind of brought into and really influenced Northwestern basketball?
Well, of course, I think that Duke, whatever, runs deep with anyone that has gone there. So I'm definitely think, he brought in that mental, I don't know the word, but like just that excellence, that standard of excellence that Duke has. And he tried to really instill that culture within us. Obviously, some things are going to be different because we're not Duke, or we aren't. We weren't yet. But he did try to instill that culture and that mindset of that family kind of atmosphere amongst the players, and still the standard that we're going to get work done. So I think to that extent he did. But from that like quote you said, like Duke was always Duke, Kentucky. Like I had visits with Harvard and head coach Tommy Amaker, Stanford and Johnny Dawkins, and they both said, because I think they both had Duke at the beginning of like Duke becoming Duke, and they were like, when I committed to Duke, it wasn't Duke, like it was just like a run of the mill school. Coach K was on the hot seat, we had to turn it around, and you can just see how it's grown into like such a powerhouse. Like if you look at Duke logistically, like Duke is a private school. It's very hard to get into. The gym is small. Like before all of this, like I'm sure they didn't have all the bells and whistles then that they had now to really like try and entice players to go there. And it's hard to get into like regardless. So, it takes a whole process to become good. Like it's just an overnight thing. So I think, kind of getting that firsthand experience from those coaches and previous players really inspired me like to say, hey man, why not Northwestern then? If you could turn Duke into what it is today, maybe I can be one of the first building blocks into turning Northwestern into a national powerhouse.
So I wanted to ask really quick, did you wrote that narration, right, for that video?
Yeah.
So is writing something that you've been passionate about, or was that just something that you felt spoke to you and you needed to get on paper?
Man, I don't know. Like from at the beginning of my college, academic career, I guess I'd always been a good writer, and as I kind of went through college, like it just seemed like writing was something I could do. Like I majored in consulting. That major itself had a lot of writing throughout it. And now, finishing my master's, I guess one of the projects that I just thought about doing later in life, especially reading certain NBA players' books like Six Man and the couple of Phil Jackson books. Like I think I just want, like I have like I don't know, like an inkling to try and like write something later. Right. Like I feel like I could do something with that. Like that would just be an interesting project for me. I don't know if that's like something I want to do as a profession, but it's definitely something interesting I think I want to, go into.
Yeah, I find that really cool because I'm a writer too. So whenever, you meet another one, it's always nice to kind of pick your brain a little bit. But could you walk us through, what that experience was like to enter the NBA draft and ultimately to go undrafted? How did that kind of impact your mentality, and did that affect your desire to still make the NBA?
Well, yeah, when I was coming out of college, my college career, I guess, was always marred by injury, and the ups and downs. Like we had good seasons, we had bad seasons. But the one biggest thing was that I had gotten injured a lot. But my mindset and almost everything that I do is just you tough it out. Like you thug it out. You get through it. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, that might have hurt me in my college career because when I should have sat out 1 or 2 games and I just played through it, I ended up sitting out, 5 or 6. And from an NBA perspective, you don't see that. You just see the kids sitting out. And so my senior year, I was doing very, very well. Was on certain draft boards, whatever, and I got hurt. And I decided to play through it because I thought my team needed me. And during that stretch of me just playing through it, my production just took a huge dip. I finished the season strong, but it was during that dip that, people started becoming weary of me, whatever. Still was able to sign a good agent, go through the draft process, have a, good amount of workouts. And I feel like I did very well in the workouts. And, on draft night, it just didn't happen. Obviously it was a tough day, but like I think that day will always like be a motivation to me because I really do truly believe and know that I can play at this level. Right. Just going to the G League, like it was just like a period where you kind of reevaluate. It's like a gut check, and it's either like, you're gonna either do this or you're not. And I would say my one true like skill, regardless of talent, speed, shooting ability, ball handling, whatever, is that I'm competitive as hell. Like whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability. And just seeing like draft night and then going to the G League and playing some of the guys that got drafted, like that was just enough for me to say like, oh, well, I'm going to the NBA because you're there and I played you in college and I don't know what they saw, but I'm getting there too.
Right.
That's awesome. Now,
that was my thing.
As you're going through the draft, again, of course, you ended up ultimately being undrafted, but very quickly, as a Magic fan, we're looking at the news the next day, see who we're picking up as a free agent, and right away your name came up. I think the next morning, I caught onto that. I started researching your name and found out all about your career in college. But how quickly after the draft or throughout the draft process did the Magic show interest, and ultimately they call you to sign you to a contract?
Well, it's really funny. Like might have had 9 workouts like almost back to back. Like you're going from Utah to New Orleans to New York, and then like you're going city to city, like doing these workouts like in such a small time period. And it's not like it's hard for sure, but it's like a time period in your life that you're like so many people don't get to experience this. Like you're going city to city that you might not have never been to, into these luxurious like facilities, and you get to see the players and like the coaches and you're almost like right there at your dream. And I get to Orlando like this. This is like my 5th back-to-back, and I still have a couple more to go. And I'm tired, but the Magic kind of have me in like a guard and wing kind of like workout. Like it's like 4-point guards and then like I'm one of 2 wings. And I personally thought it was my worst workout that I had. And so leaving I thought I didn't do well. They talked to me after, saying, they like me or whatever. But, I'm getting back on the plane going to Golden State, actually. And I'm like, man, I guess the Orlando Magic are out of the picture. It's like, that was a job interview I didn't do well for.
So I guess that's just not. They're just not. I'm just not going to be a Magic player. And it's funny, like after the draft ended, the Magic are one of the first people to call me and my agent, showing it like a lot of interest in saying we want you and want you to be in our kind of like our farm system because we think you can do it. You just need a little like tweaks here and there. So it was like a pleasant surprise, I guess. And I couldn't have been happier to be in Lakeland. I thought Lakeland, with what they do down there, and the culture they have, was exactly what I needed just to kind of help the game slow down enough that I could excel. And I think that was like a big thing for me, especially going through training camp and seeing it. Like the talent, I think is absolutely there. I was just going too fast and didn't really know like the ins and outs of what to expect to kind of like slow it down for me. Like I was just going too fast. Things just seemed like they were coming 1,000 miles an hour. And in Lakeland, they give you a good chance to develop and see things step by step. So now when you do get called up or you're getting put in situations, you're better prepared for it. So I thought Lakeland was like, a blessing in disguise that it happened that way. And I thought it just prepared me more than ever to, kind of chase my dreams.
I think what makes the G League so interesting is that you have players there that really you guys ball, but everyone's hungry. Like everyone's trying to get that job, everyone's trying to get that call up. So how is that process like playing for Lakeland and the process of getting a call up and the transportation that you guys are going through?
Right. Well, I think that's like one of the big things people just forget about is like it's ex-NBA players, it's highly touted, prospects, all that are in the G League. Like I think the G League, if you put it up against like an international scale, it's like one of the top leagues in the world. Like I know Spain has their league, Germany, Turkey, Russia, China, but I think like if you really put them like stack them up, the G League is in there in the mix as one of the top leagues in the world. You may not get paid as much as you do over there, but it's definitely one of the top leagues. So like playing against that talent and then succeeding and excelling is something that its own right is like definitely an accomplishment. When I got the call up, actually the first day I got called up was the day Kobe died. So it was just such an interesting experience, like to, have all that rush of emotion kind of go through the whole thing. Like I was so this is just an example of the transportation. We were in Greensboro playing a G League game. Let's say it was a Friday night game. And, the general manager of Lakeland gets a call saying the Orlando Magic want to call me up for Saturday because they play the Clippers. So Saturday morning at like 6 a.m. I leave, go to the airport in Charlotte, I think. Fly out because the flight was like booked, so last minute. I gotta go to New Jersey to fly back down to Orlando. So I land in New Jersey at like 8:30. Flight got delayed in Charlotte. The flight to Orlando is at 9. I get off the plane at like 8:40, and it just so happens my flight, the gate is like on the opposite side of the New Jersey airport. So we got to run through the airport. We're like the last people on the plane. Just happy to be on it. Just happy to like, this is first day of something bigger. Get to Orlando, they lost all my bags. So that was another like obstacle. I got to call the Magic and say, I don't have anything. So like, this is gonna be an interesting day because I don't have anything except my book bag and my shoes. So, whatever else, I guess we're just gonna figure it out. So I get to Orlando at like 11, shoot around at noon. So I'm going straight to shoot around. And I get in, I'm super excited to see everybody. Super excited to just say, what's up? High five, guys. Happy to see them again since preseason or whatever. And everyone's kind of like walking around like a zombie in the gym. And I'm like, what's going on, everybody? Like, it's game day. Everyone should be pumped up. And it was just like Kobe died. My first impression was like, this is you got to be joking like that. Obviously, that can't happen. And the coach Clifford came in and was just like, nah, yeah, Kobe has passed. We got word from our informants, whatever. And so it was just like a dark cloud over the whole day. Like it just seemed like it was like such a milestone, but it was also such like a tragedy that had just happened. So my first day was definitely interesting on the job.
Wow, that is definitely a day you will not forget. I mean, not only obviously the Kobe news, but the whole trajectory to get to that point.
Yeah.
But what about the opposite of that? So what about as a rookie for you? You've gone through a lot, right? So going undrafted, going to Lakeland, getting a two-way contract. You don't see that too often, in players these days. But then, what are your favorite memories so far as a rookie? So again, whether it's Lakeland or with the Magic, what has been that moment for you that you're like, hey, I will never forget that. So favorite moments for you so far?
Um, I think just being on Lakeland, like the camaraderie we had in Lakeland, like and the chemistry we had was great. So I just will never forget my experience down there first and foremost. I think the first ever like game winner I had ever made was in Lakeland against the Knicks, and so that game was just like a huge milestone. Like we had been losing the whole game. I started like heating up in the second half, kind of like cut it close. I think we were down one or the game was tied with like 3 seconds left. And the play was for me. I couldn't originally get open. So Asani threw it to Kaiser. And, I don't even know, like instinctively, I was just following the ball. And, I'm glad he had socially passed it to me. And I made like my first game winner. Like it wasn't my first buzzer beater, but like the first time I actually won a game. And I think I was just so excited. I just ran up the court and just ran straight into the tunnel. And obviously it was like pure excitement and like we were partying in the locker room.
Cool.
But that's like a memory I'll never forget. Like even if I'm able to succeed in the NBA or go wherever, like I think I'll always remember that game.
That's pretty cool. So being that you are on a two-way contract, and you're not with the Orlando Magic 100% of the time, how would you say that impacts your relationship with the players and the coaching staff, and how does that translate back to Lakeland?
Obviously, there's like a disconnect, right? Where if you're not, fully committed to one team, you're not with them throughout everything, so you're not going to experience all the highs and lows, of being with them. Like you're not going to get all the, camaraderie. But luckily for me, the Orlando Magic are such a young like team, and their core is like so young that it's easy to like connect and get it like relate to the players. So I've been fortunate enough to like befriend Markel, James Ennis, Kim, Gary Clark, Aaron. They're all cool guys. Like so, it wasn't hard for me to like make those friendships and relationships with the guys. Like they're all down to earth and all seem like pretty willing to try and help where they can for rookies. So it's been cool. And then like having BJ as well as two-way, and him being a two-way before me, he kind of was able to give me like certain ins and outs of like going back and forth, what to expect. So it helped along the way.
Now, with that being said, do you feel like it takes time, because obviously through Lakeland, they do their best to kind of mimic the same plays in Orlando, so that when there is a call up, you kind of already know exactly where you're positioned at, the plays, the whole nine. Do you feel like playing on the court, it also allows it to be an easier transition in that aspect?
Oh, kind of. As a two-way, and especially in my experience, I would say the biggest adjustment isn't plays. Like, I feel like I'm smart enough to like, if you just taught me a play in a day, I can remember that as well as the other plays. The biggest adjustment is like going from being the man to then like having to like wait. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not a part of the core group. And I think that's like the biggest adjustment, especially in college. Like I think a lot of young players need to realize like, unless you're a top 5 pick or lottery, I guess, you're not going into a situation being the alpha dog. And you might be in college and you might be the guy and get all the perks and whatever, the respect, the accountability and all of that. When you go to an NBA team, it's almost like becoming a freshman again. You're at the bottom of the totem pole. And you have to learn, going up. So being in the G League, I learned very quickly. My learning curve wasn't that big. I was able to, amass a good level of production and become one of the key guys. But then going to Orlando, kind of having to sit and just learn and soak it in. And, that's fine. Like, I think I still need a lot to learn, and I'm eager to take all the information I can. But going down from like the G League and scoring 30 points, then getting called up the next day and sitting for 39 minutes and then playing the last minute, it's just such a stark difference. You know what I'm saying? So it's the biggest difference I would be is just staying mentally sharp and mentally prepared for whatever comes next. And for a lot of times, like young guys, it's hard to like keep that mindset all the time. But, I'm learning, as I go, and I think, I've gotten much better at it.
Going from, like you said, being the man, right? And then playing a pretty significant role in the G League, and then going to the NBA and, like you said, waiting and kind of waiting for your moment. Does that impact your intensity level? How does that impact how you kind of manage yourself and your energy?
Nah, like I said, I'm very competitive and fiery. So I'm itching to get out there and be able to do what I can do. It just takes some time to like find your footing and find like how you succeed in that new role. Like, and so for me, for a while, like, and this is just like really like going into it, like for me a while, like I thought my um, kind of like satisfaction of like being in the NBA was to score. Like it was just like I needed to score my first points. I have to like that was my validation for like getting called. Like I gotta get out there and get a bucket. And it didn't happen, but that wasn't. I think necessarily like that wasn't what I needed to do to succeed. Like I think the more pressure I put on myself just to score, the harder it became to finally do that. And I think like going into that new role, like the only thing I needed to worry about was just learning and soaking up the advantages I had of being on that stage. Because there's so many people who would kill to like just be the 15th man, the 14th man, or whatever on the NBA team. So being able to do that, and for a while, I think like I didn't play in the G League for like a month. Like I was just up with the Magic. Like I just had for a time, and I think like the back half of the season, I had just transitioned into the Magic. So I had really started to like assimilate to the culture, hang with the guys, whatever. And it was just more about me just soaking it up as a sponge and just learning. So then when it really does matter and I have to be called on and ready, like whether it be in practice, a scrimmage, or a game, and I have to do something significant, then I'm ready and I have all the tools that I've learned to finally utilize them in the game.
Do you feel as if your experience that you've had, so for example, that month long that you had with the Magic, when you're kind of transition back into Lakeland, do you feel like that's just an added experience that kind of makes the game in the G League just that much easier?
Absolutely. Like in practice, you're not going to like guard Aaron Gordon and then, have the ball and like have the freedom to attack him and then go down to the G League and not say like, what I'm saying? If I could play against him, like I can't play against you. Right. Like, I don't like my mindset. Just I don't know. It comes back to me being competitive. Like my mindset has always been like that. Like when I was in Chicago, and I would play in the open runs and do all the stuff with the pros, and I would score. What I'm saying? Like if I was like, oh, if I can score on you, well, this next guy can't do shit with me. Then like you just can't guard me. There's nothing you're gonna be able to do. So when I finally got my footing up there and was able to like get comfortable, then I knew I was like, well, this is it. Like I found it now. Like something has clicked. So now I just know like I'm gonna score 20 points regardless of who's guarding me in the G League in whatever situation. If like I'm right, and I have it like going, like there's nothing that's gonna stop me.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like when I think about it, you're throwing a football, right? And you can throw it regular, but then you go to the gym real quick, do a couple push-ups, do some curls. You throw that same football, you're gonna be able to throw it like a mile farther. But Vic, we're gonna jump into our next section that we call In the OZone with Vic Law. Pretty simple. We're gonna ask you some questions, and you only have a couple seconds to be able to answer. So it's gonna be kind of rapid fire. So obviously, you being from Chicago, you've kind of experienced Florida. Are you more into lakes or are you more into beaches?
Beaches, 100%.
Jordan, Kobe, or LeBron?
Jordan.
Chi-town.
Flying to a game, who are you sitting next to on the plane?
Flying to a game, Gary Clark.
So one player in the G League outside of yourself who you think right now has no business in the G League that should be on the NBA roster with you?
Well, all 12 other Lakeland players. But like I love my teammates in Lakeland, so all of them. But I thought PJ Dozier was really hard to guard in the G League. Like, I think of myself as a very good defender, and we played them in Vegas. Like I thought he was like super talented, and like I thought he deserved his chance in the NBA. Like he seemed like a player that had just figured it out. Like he was or had already been in the G League a year. He seemed like a guy that I thought could have been there. And also I thought BJ Johnson is ready to make that next step with hopefully it's with Orlando or with whoever it is that I think he's ready to have his moment as well.
Awesome. One more question here for you. One player who you resemble your game after?
Robert Covington.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
That's a really good comparison.
Like I obviously could give you like Giannis. Like I give you unrealistic, like saying like I want to be like Giannis, right? But I'm not 6'11" and have a +5 wingspan. But I think like and Covington, Rob is from Chicago too, so like I think like we have like a lot similar like mentalities and mindsets. But like I think that in the NBA, like, you know, as I develop, I think I could be a really good 3-and-D guy that also has the ability to bring the ball up and, you know, be a de facto ball handler if need be. But yeah, like Robert Covington, I thought, you know, his path is like similar to mine. Like, it wasn't easy for him to first initially get into the league, but then once he had his foot in the door, you know, he never, you know, let it go.
So I know you spoke about kind of you know, your commitment and how you look at challenges and how you approach the game in that sense. Are you somebody who impacts your teammates more so through like conversation or actions on the court? Like, are you one of those guys that shows how you should play and comport yourself, or do you talk about it?
Both. Like, I think obviously, like, you know, going back to the Last Dance, like, I think what something that was so powerful was Jordan saying he never asked his teammates to do something that he wasn't doing. So I think as a leader, like, you both have to like speak and communicate effectively and learn what it means to like talk to each individual person the best, like how they, you know, function the best. But also you have to be able to like back that up, right? Like, you can't tell somebody, you know, you're dog ass on defense and then you get scored on like 10 times. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, you have to be able to back up what you're saying and like be able to hold yourself accountable the same way you're holding others accountable.
Man, Vic, thank you so much for joining us. Man, we feel like we got to know you so much more. We definitely respect all the hard work that you're putting in. Being a two-way player isn't easy by any means, but man, we're rooting for you for sure. And that's
appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. If you guys had to make your Mount Rushmore of basketball, so 4 players, who would be on it? All time.
Flipped it on us.
Man.
Yeah, I could go first. I need time.
You know, honestly, for me, it's hard not to put the obvious ones, right? It's hard not to put and this is just due to my exposure. I would put definitely Michael Jordan up there. I would put LeBron. I would put Kobe. And my fourth one, and this is just so I can infuse my own biasness, I'm putting T-Mac up there. T-Mac is my guy. He's another dude that I feel like if he was in the right position with the right team and didn't get impacted by injuries, I think that's a player that deserves way more respect than what he was given.
So are you saying in like the conversation of like the best all the time, like your 3 would be Mike, Kobe, and LeBron? Like, I'm not saying in no particular order, but those 3.
I would put that because I'm only speaking on my exposure. Like, you have so many people that will say, "Oh, I'll put Magic Johnson up there. I'll put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar." I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've watched their games because I've never watched a film of it. I've only seen the highlights and the documentaries that I've seen. These are players that I've fully had my exposures that I've seen play and really impact the game, and those would be the 4 that I put up there. And between the 4, if put in the right position, the right people around it, I would still go with my dude T-Mac.
And I would just challenge you with this because I always do this, just being devil's advocate and for argument's sake. When people put Kobe in the top tier of like players, right? And I love Kobe, like I'm a huge Kobe fan. But when they do that, they're saying that he was one of the best player in his time. And a lot of people will say Tim Duncan was better than Kobe during like those 2000 years. And if you're gonna say Kobe was the best, then at what point did LeBron become the best? You know what I'm saying? Because Tim Duncan won 2 MVPs, 5 championships, like all in like that those 5 6 years. The Spurs were by far and away like the best. You know what I'm saying? They were the standard, and Tim Duncan was the best player on those Spurs teams. And like I think people forget how good he was because he wasn't flashy, like he wasn't. You know what I'm saying? It's Tim Duncan. Like, you know, no one, like, to the extent people like guards more than bigs for whatever reason, just because I guess you like watching them play better. But if you, like in the 2000s, I would argue that Tim Duncan is neck and neck, if not better, or was better than Kobe during that time period. I'm not going to say like the full body of work, but I would say in like those 2000s, it would have to be Kobe or Duncan, right?
You're 100% right, but I would say this. Tim Duncan never stole a championship away from me. Okay. Kobe did. Kobe single-handedly stole a championship away from me. So.
He did. No, that's true.
So what about you, Al? What are yours?
Oh, man. So my first 3 are the same. So I got Kobe, MJ, and LeBron. Okay. My fourth one, though, as I'm sitting here, man, so many names come to mind. but I'll throw a little wrinkle in there. I'll say Steph.
Steph.
Ooh.
Wait.
But then again, wait.
Oh,
But I'm doing this because, like Ant said, just my favorite player in the 2000s. You know, I grew up a Vince Carter fan. As Vince got older, Steph has been the guy I've been watching every single game. And just the way he changed the game, man. Like, you got just like MJ did and LeBron did. You got to respect the fact that in the 2012 and on, Steph has changed the NBA to what it is today. And I think for that reason alone, you know, so many fans, so many kids are growing up now to believe they can be NBA players because of Steph. Yeah. So just because of that, I feel that he deserves, you know, some recognition. And let alone, he has 3 rings. And I do believe he'll win a couple more before he retires. But I mean, of course, there's a lot of players in history, like Ant mentioned, in history in the past that deserve to be in that top 4. Right. Just for me, being selfish a little bit, he deserves to be in that, that spot.
So as a point guard, Steph is a top 3 point guard ever? If you're going to put him up there, you got to answer the question.
Yeah, of course. Again, if you're asking me, I think so.
So he's better than Magic.
Different era, man. Different era. Again, if it was up to me, I would say yes.
I'll say this. Like, I could see why I would say that, because Steph single-handedly revolutionized how people play basketball.
He absolutely did. I think, like, I love Steph too, but he absolutely changed the game of basketball.
I think for that reason, he should be considered. Now, for my 4, I know, because you caught a little bit for Steph, so I know I'm gonna catch a lot for what I'm about to say. But
I already know who he's gonna say.
Oh yeah,
I got MJ.
Okay.
I got Kobe. I got Shaq.
Okay.
And my 4th, because I think about dominance and I think about scoring is a big part of that, Carmelo Anthony. People can say, I know. People are gonna go crazy, but prime Melo could score on anybody from anywhere. Could score at 3 levels. His defense was always a question mark. But one of the greatest offensive players that I've ever witnessed.
You put prime Melo over prime Bron too, though.
That's true.
Prime Melo over. Well, I think the thing is,
Melo in there, you put LeBron in. So even if, like, you put Shaq in, then you almost have to put LeBron in.
So Melo and Bron could share that 4th spot, but Melo's one of my favorite players of all time. Melo made me love basketball. So that's my pick.
I feel like Vic is rolling with my 4 on top of y'all. That's what it kind of feels like.
Melo. Did you like Melo on the Knicks or the Nuggets? Like, when did you like Melo?
You better not say Knicks.
I liked him both times, but when he was on the Knicks, I feel like the Knicks kill everybody. Like, it doesn't matter what your skill set is. If you're wearing that jersey, you know, it ain't gonna last too long. But I don't know, man. Melo has always been one of those guys, like I said, could score from anywhere. I think if he was less selfish, he could have done something in New York. But he understood that he was the guy, and like I think it was Chauncey that said, scoring 30 was too important for Melo. If he would have passed up a little more, I think he would have been in this conversation for more people. But his selfishness kind of led him to, you know, where he is now.
Okay, right. And I guess mine would be, and I do agree with Anthony the most. Because, you know, I think mine would be Mike, LeBron, Magic, and I don't want to say Kareem because that's too many Lakers. I don't want to put 2 Lakers in it. Mike, LeBron, Magic, and I'll say Kareem. Fuck. Kareem. I just think you can't, like, overstate, or Bill Russell. I don't think you can overstate, like even though the eras are different, like what they were able to accomplish in their eras, regardless. And that's why I don't like the era conversation, because, like, okay, yes, the era is different, but if you take the person in their era and you stack them up against whatever they did in this era, and you have your answer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if he was able to win 11 championships in his era, then and you take that completely out of the way. Don't say if he played in that area, this era, him in this era and his stats versus this guy in his era, and you just, like, match them up. Then, like, I just feel like it's hard to, like, argue with numbers. But You know, it is what it is. Like I think Steph is like a good one. You know, I think like when Steph retires, like he'll be one of the best. He's already one of the best ever. It's surprising to me that no one said Durant.
Well, I think KD unfortunately has changed the person that he is, and I think that's impacted people's views of him. I mean, like again, I'm a Steph fan, and him deciding to leave the Warriors to go to the Nets, I did not understand that mindset at all. From a career perspective and what the dynasty could have been, if he says, "Hey, I'm going to stay with the Golden State Warriors 5 more years," he could have become, next to that MJ level of saying, "Hey, I'm going to end up my career with 5-6 rings. We ran the entire 2010 dynasty period."
Right.
So he's made some moves that unfortunately have changed people's ideas of who he is as a person, I think.
He's just like almost similar as his teammate now, Kyrie.
Yeah.
Like Kyrie could have stayed in Cleveland.
Yep.
And who knows if LeBron would have stayed or not if he had stayed, but he could have stayed in Cleveland and they would have won the East every year.
Yep.
100%.
So like, it's funny that they're on the same team because like, both of their, I feel like, and I'm sure they're good guys or whatever, but both in the media, both of their images have become like this like selfish, bad teammate kind of thing. And, that may or may not be true, but like just because they left, like you said, the ideal image of winning because they wanted to chase their own like path, they've now been, victimized or villainized as bad teammates and character issue guys.
Yeah.
Good analysis.
You know how in the beginning of the episode, we were talking about how, you go to a Magic game and you'll see a bunch of yellow for the Golden State Warriors. I was that guy rocking a San Francisco T-shirt underneath his Magic.
That is me. That is me.
Like, your favorite players. There's nothing wrong with that. When I watch.
It's rough. Like I'm not kidding. I went to Amway my first few years moving to Orlando, man, and it was rough. Like my wife and I looked at each other like we wore Magic gear all year, but for this Warriors game, what are we doing? Do we wear the Curry? And I'll be honest, we alternate. Just to give you the answer, we alternate. So we'll do 1 year Magic, we'll do 1 year Curry.
That's not bad though. Like I'm a diehard Chicago Bears fan, but because I'm so into fantasy football, like I'll love the Bears to just be like, all right, DeAndre Hopkins has 3 touchdowns. I want the Bears to win, but he has to score 3 times. So I understand the dual fanship. Still wrong with that.
Yeah. Yo, Vic, I appreciate you so much for coming on and joining us. This was a lot of fun. And that's a wrap for us. Quarantine with Vic Law. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the OZone podcast, the voice of Magic fans.
Be sure to visit our website, theozonepod.com. And remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.